What's going on, everyone? Dr. Mike Axler here, professor of exercise science, PhD in applied human physiology, 60 plus time marathoner and ultramarathoner, and performance coach. Today, we are going to be discussing threshold runs versus tempo runs. And again, with all of these endurance videos and podcasts, however you take this in, you can think of these runs as also swims and bikes because it's all going to fall into that category of endurance training. So for the longest time when I was training for halves and fulls, and then I came up through ultras, I just looked at tempo runs and threshold runs, and I kind of would doesn't really matter. Kind of roll my eyes like it doesn't really matter. But there are key physiological differences between doing each workout. One is aerobic and one is anaerobic, or with oxygen and without oxygen is a little foreshadowing. And you can really be getting some really, really, really awesome key physiological benefits workout to workout, week to week, month to month with these workouts. But if you're not doing them correctly, you could really be leaving a lot of cardiovascular, pulmonary, musculoskeletal gains on the table. And of course, I don't want you to do any of that. So let's dive into today's episode. So most runners do confuse tempo and threshold runs. They'll use terms like tempo or threshold interchangeably. The amount of friends I've had in the marathoning and ultramarathoning community, and the amount of folks that I've had the opportunity to coach, and a lot of my fellow runners at different running clubs will say like, oh, I'm going to do a tempo, I'm going to do a threshold. And I look at their Strava data and it's just all the exact same heart rate. It's somewhere in that like zone 3 to zone 4 gray range of like 150 to 160 beats per minute. That's their easy run, that's their long run, that's their tempo run, that's their interval run, and everything's kind of the same. They get trapped in this like Strava wasteland of like, oh, what's my pace? And it's like, okay, relax. Like you can become a much stronger runner, more efficient runner if you learn to periodize correctly. So all that being said, a lot of folks take easy runs way too hard and they take hard runs sometimes too easy. And what ends up happening is that this confusion very much all the time leads to poorly structured training blocks, installed progress, and just total underperformance. Maybe people lack motivation, maybe they get injured, maybe they overreach or overtrain, and it's just really not good because they don't know exactly what to do with these training runs. And how most people try to fix this is what they'll say is they'll run hard once a week or maybe twice a week on like a Tuesday or a Thursday. And as I had said, Strava makes this a million times worse, because instead of focusing on actual heart rate and some of the quantifiable data, they'll just go straight up with tracking their pace. And just for any of you, like I live in Florida, and between winter, where it might be 60 degrees, and summer, where it could be 100 degrees, your pace is going to drastically change. If it's an easy run in the winter versus an easy run in the summer, your easy run could be at 120 to 130 beats per minute, and it could be a 10-minute mile in the winter, or it could be a 12 or 13-minute mile in the summer. And everybody takes that the exact same way. It's an easy run, because they only look at pace. But that's a huge problem. Forget the whole Strava data, forget the whole pace, and go off of heart rate and actual effort so you can continue or start to make great progress. A lot of folks will also use generic pace charts that they found online. They'll say, oh, I want to run a 3:30 marathon or a 4-hour marathon, so it looks like I should be running X, Y, and Z. And those are just paces from big data sets that you can look at online. If you look at the New York City Marathon or the Chicago Marathon or any of the World Marathon majors, and you could probably Google what's the average finishing time, what's the average half marathon split, what's the average amount of women over the age of 45 running the race, or something like that. And what they'll see is that these generic pace charts will match up with like how maybe you should perform. But seeing that everyone's different, they're running in a different climate, they're running in different shoes, they're running on different terrain, you cannot take a finishing time and then just reverse engineer all your splits. It's really not the best way to train. And lastly, people also think that doing one steady state run or one steady state effort covers all of your hard training for the week, and this is just flawed. And let's see what the science has to say about this. So the science very much agrees that the tempo run does not equal the threshold run. They do train different physiological systems, and in this sense, we're talking about lactate clearance versus buffering of acidity, and those are two different things. If we're looking at lactate clearance, we're asking the question of how hard or how fast can we go in an aerobic zone where we're still clearing out lactate and hydrogen ions versus we're moving past that OBLA, that onset of blood lactate accumulation, which we talked about in a past video. Now we're looking at lactate buffering. We're in anaerobic, we're without oxygen, we're going to keep building up lactate and hydrogen ions, but we want to buffer, we want to leave that thing simmering. It's going to hurt, but we have to leave it there. So this is the difference between an aerobic run and an anaerobic run. And then wrong pacing means missing key aerobic and lactate adaptations. And as I had said before, without any sort of specificity in your training, you can very much plateau and just get frustrated or even just decline in your level of fitness. However, the great thing is that we have science here to back us up. So a better science-based solution for the tempo run specifically, a tempo run is going to be more of a zone 3. So a tempo run being a zone 3 is by definition aerobic, which means with oxygen. And this is going to be around 80 to 88% of your max heart rate. And if you're watching this and we want to know what your max heart rate is, take 220 minus your age, and that's going to be your max heart rate. For me, it's around 190. And what I'll do is multiply 190 by 0.8 and 0.88 to find 80 to 88% of my max heart rate. That's my zone 3. Now you can do the same for you. A tempo run is really, really awesome in a training cycle, in a mesocycle, starting out at like 20 or 30 minutes, and then maybe building up to 50, 60, 70 minutes. This is asking the question of how long can you stay in this uncomfortable aerobic steady state zone? And this is going to help build your aerobic base as well as lactate clearance. That's your tempo run. Do those on like Thursdays, and I'll explain why in a second. The other type of run, the threshold run or the lactate threshold run, these are great for Tuesdays. The reason why I said do the tempo runs on Thursdays, the lactate threshold on Tuesdays, is because the Tuesday runs, the lactate threshold runs, are much harder. This is going to be zone 4, around 88 to 92% of your max heart rate. And with these, you can only do intervals at maybe 10 minutes at a time, maybe just like mile repeats for you. If you do 3 by 1 mile repeats or 4 by 1 mile repeats with a 1, 2, or 3 minute rest in between, that's perfectly okay. Because this is anaerobic, this is going to build up lactate and hydrogen ions in almost an exponential manner. It's going to be tough. It's going to feel difficult, but that's okay. Because this is going to train your delaying of fatigue and also just lactate clearance. So we know we're going to build up the metabolic byproducts and metabolic waste products. Now it's time to buffer it away. So big thing here, do your lactate threshold runs, your zone 4 on Tuesdays, and your tempo runs, your zone 3 on Thursdays. Alrighty, TLDR, why this will work for you. So precision in pacing means precision in results. Every time that I've gone into a race, or my good friends have gone into a race, or my clients have gone into a race, we've known a pretty decent estimate, not only of our finishing time, but of our splits as well. If you go out there and say, I don't know, I'm just trying to have fun, that's completely fine. But if you're going to say, I'm going to win this race, today is my day, one of my good friends will always say, no, today is never your day. It is never your day. You have to be ready to perform. You perform how you practice, right? So if you really do spend around 80% of your week at a nice, easy zone 2 aerobic, low stress, that is awesome. Around 10% of your week vis-a-vis on Tuesday, doing your lactate threshold, zone 4 intervals, and the other 10% of your week at that zone 3 moderate tempo in order to build that aerobic base, you'll be on a really, really, really solid trajectory. And with this, you can not only avoid overreaching and overtraining as well as burnout, but you could also decrease the incidences of injury, because injury is going to be what's going to keep you away from running and keeping you away from racing, and that has its whole host of terrible side effects. So this is what the best coaches do, what the best athletes do. So I would like you to do this as well so you can continue to make the best progress possible. Awesome. So with that, if you did enjoy, please like, subscribe, share this with a friend who does run or does not run and needs to start running. If you did enjoy, please go and scroll on down and subscribe to both my Instagram and my Substack so you will not miss a beat with respect to exercise science, nutrition, strength and conditioning, physiology, all the rest of it, where we cover new material every single day. And I'm going to go do my morning run right now. It is Friday, so a bit of an easy run on the table. Maybe we'll do a little bit of a fast finish, who knows? But I hope you're going to run today as well, and I'll catch you all next time.